It's weird that they do it. That it does it this way.
There you go. It's weird that you can't flip the camera around before you do it. Hold on, I'll be back. 1 second. All right. I called this one "Learning to Learn" today. Something that I've been working on in my life is learning how to learn better, but not only learning better, but learning faster and learning quality stuff. I've been reading a lot of books lately, and one of the books that I picked up that I really liked was Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography. I've actually read a lot of biographies, but Arnold Schwarzenegger right now, here's a guy that, by the way, grew up as poor as you could possibly be. Just had this belief that if he made it to America, he can make a lot of money, and that's exactly what he did. The one interesting thing about Arnold Schwarzenegger is that, he was a professional bodybuilder before he was an actor. And he was actually a pretty decent businessman before he was an actor too, invested in a bunch of real estate. But before he was a big time actor, he was a millionaire. A lot of people don't know that. You would think that, people would just want to be an actor and then that would make you $1 million and that would be it. But here's a guy that over the period of his life did a lot of different things. So then he was governor of California, obviously at one point. Now he's back to acting again and making billions and millions of dollars doing that kind of stuff. Very fascinating. But his thought process the whole time was that he literally laughed the entire time. And I think that's a key because I know a lot of people are sort of stuck in what they're doing. And if you're not enjoying where you're at right now, you're not going to enjoy where you're going to be at in 5 years. That's just the way it works. And honestly, that's what I struggle with right now is learning how to enjoy where I am in this moment. Because it's easy to look at everything else and be like, well, I don't like this, I don't like that. One of the things for me, I recently moved out. Was in the same place for 2 years, and now I'm in a new place, and it's been a transition, because it's not your stuff, and you're with someone you don't really know, and you're learning how to learn them and that sort of thing, and a lot of times it can be difficult. It can be hard to try to deal with those sorts of situations, or maybe like you're in your job situation. I know for me, with the job situation, a lot of times I get unhappy because there's not a whole lot of progress. Although I'm doing very well in my job, it's just looking towards the future and that sort of thing. And it's easy to sort of get in that downward spiral. But you look at what he did; he was always enjoying everywhere he was. And at one point, he talked about having a one-bedroom apartment, and he went to Tijuana and got a picture of him with Ronald Reagan. Well, and he didn't even know it was Ronald Reagan. It was just a cowboy, and he put it up on the wall. And his buddy comes in and was like, "You know who that is? That's Ronald Reagan." And I guess he was against Ronald Reagan. But he asked him, well, what does he believe in all this? And he told him, and he's like, well, gosh, then that's what I'm going to believe. And that's when he became a Republican, actually, during that time. But then he really pretty much did what Ronald Reagan did. He became a big-time actor. Then he became governor. So, how did he do it? And he even says, you know what? I always believed I could, and then I worked hard. He worked hard to get to where it's at, and I think that's part of the key. One of the things I can look at if I'm honest with myself, looking back at my life, is that I haven't worked as hard as I could. If I wanted to start a business, then start a business, work hard, do the grind, learn about sales. If you don't know somebody, call somebody and ask them how to do it. I think a lot of times, and even maybe in relationships and other aspects, especially working out, you're always wanting to be passionate about it, and sometimes you lose passion, and those are the times that if you can bust it out, if you can keep going with your whatever goals you're setting, you know, then you'll be successful. But I think a lot of people quit, including myself over the past few years. I've quit when things have gotten difficult instead of pushing through, because it's like, well, I don't feel it anymore. I don't feel passionate about it anymore. I think relationships are a great example of that. You hear all the time where people are like, well, I loved you in the beginning, but now I don't. And it's like, well, I mean, the Twitter patience stage where you're really just like, really excited to be around this person, and there's that fresh, positive energy before like the stress of life sets in, that goes away. I mean, I was married for 6 years, and it goes away. When you're dealing with kids and you're dealing with houses and you're dealing with life, work and all that, that initial twitterpation is gone. It's probably why a lot of people cheat too. Actually, cheating's an interesting thing because women tend to cheat not for the sex. They tend to cheat for the emotional connection, and I think men tend to cheat for the sex. You know, because they're lacking it with their partner. But that emotional connection, ironically, is what occurs during sex. And I think over time, as you're, in a relationship, the sex can get a little boring. It doesn't have the emotional connection it had when you first started, so on and so on. And I've spent a lot of time thinking, just because I recently got out of a relationship and could look back and look at, some of the issues that occurred. And I think to myself, well, what sort of things could I have done during the relationship to try to, get more passion back, and, a lot of those answers I still don't have. Although I am reading this book, and I talked about this on some of my earlier stuff, called The Way to a Superior Man. And a lot of that is just relationship based in the sense of masculine versus feminine. But one of the things I read today, actually, in that book was he was talking about how when it comes to, a girl within a relationship, a lot of times, if they're angry or they're stressed or whatever, all they want is for the man to sort of overcome that with love. And what I would do when I was in a relationship is I didn't do that. I mean, I definitely would get frustrated too. And, well, why are you feeling like this? Why are you being like this? And then I would leave the situation instead of trying to overcome the situation with love. And, I can say this, I honestly have no idea how to do that because when you're in there and you're fighting and there's a lot of tension and you can feel like your heart, that sort of thing beating fast, I don't know how you can take a step back from that and just interject all this love into the situation to where it can actually, help put things at ease. There's a great, it's called the law of state transference. And you see a lot of these guys who are very grounded. And I'm not sure, I'll say maybe like billionaires. A lot of the RSD guys, if you ever look at like RSD Tyler or RSD Jillian, kind of these guys, they talk about the law of state transference a lot, especially when meeting people. And like really good salespeople have that. But sort of the example is this, is like, have you ever met somebody and they don't even need to say a word, but like they just have this just a negative just vibe about them and this just negative energy, I think right now, actually, I have some of that inside of me because I had a situation today that was kind of controversial or confrontational. And for me, I tend to like let it linger. I tend to let it like, I'll think about it, I'll think about it, I'll think about it. And then that negative energy gets in there. And sometimes I can like look at it and be like, I know it's there, but I don't necessarily know how to get rid of it. How do you just like flush it out? I mean, I know a lot of people would turn to like drugs and alcohol, or maybe you'll just like, all right, I'll just go watch TV or whatever. But when you're really in the middle of that stress, and that, that feeling, that negative energy, how do you, flush it out? And this whole idea of the law of state transference, what it is you're able to, at any sort of given moment, sort of flush that negative energy out and then be able to project a positive energy, But for me, kind of going in and out of it, I'll give you a great example. I had a horrible day. This was, I want to say it was June 19th, actually. And there's a reason I remember the day, because I was hosting an event. It was for this gala in town called WARM. It's a Wilmington Area Rescue Ministry. And I do some stand-up and stuff. So I wrote a bunch of comedy for it and really had like a really good structure, worked real hard on this event and putting together like, a really positive message, because part of it too was it was a fundraiser. So I wanted to really like, evoke emotion in the audience to get them to give to help this ministry out. And that day I had been text messaging my ex, and we've, even after we broke up, we're still friendly. But I was definitely more emotional, I think, over the breakup than she was, in the sense of like I would get angry and blame her and that sort of thing. But I've been able to sort of, cycle through that. And even now, it's like I still get angry sometimes and I have a hard time getting over it. But with this situation, it was like a bad day. She'd send me this text message and I just didn't handle it right. And when I, kind of blew up at her, when I had my emotional negativity sort of spew over, and it was definitely geared at her, she too then was very reactionary towards it, and said some things. And now I'm actually to a point, especially with her, and really with anybody, where sometimes I do have these outbursts, but I'm able to, after I have them, just kind of let it subside, or at least leave, get out of the situation. So that was causing me a lot of stress. And the other thing that was causing me stress was this event. A lot of the people that were at the event were people who knew us as a couple. And one guy in particular, we actually got engaged in his store, and I was doing this event with him. So there were some humility issues there. I was embarrassed because here I'm hosting this event. I'm now single. Last year when I hosted this event, I boasted about her. She was a part of my routine and stuff like that, which I honestly, one of my jokes was about Tinder. And I was like, this app Tinder, I mean, they didn't have this stuff when I was a kid. And I just can't imagine, 40 years in the future, me and my grandson Gizmo are flying back from the moon. And he turns to me and he's like, Grandpapa, how did you meet Grammy, Ma? And I said, well, I was on this app on my personal cellular device called Tinder. And I saw your grandmother in some booty shorts and I swiped right. And next thing I know, your mom was on the way, Because, are you really going to find love through Tinder? Although, I've actually changed my perspective about this and about like dating websites overall. I think you can. I think you really can meet somebody and have a quality relationship. And you've heard people do this, but I think one of the values actually of meeting somebody online first is you really do have the ability to have a conversation with them before you have sort of the distractions of meeting each other. So I think that's interesting. Now, one of the, I think, negative sides of that is sometimes you might have a great conversation and build some attraction, and then you see them and that attraction might go away. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never met up with anybody that I met online, so I'm not sure if that's the case. The only other thing I don't like about being online is that, and maybe it's like our society thing, and maybe this is like because I'm older and this is what I'm not really used to, but I don't necessarily like being qualified. I think I've said that before, but it's just, like women seem to have this checklist of what they want from you and how they want you to respond and react. And it's like, well, okay, I mean, I get that you want to be compatible, but to like break it down, it's like, a lot of it is emotional, a lot of it is energy and that sort of thing. So anyway, this situation, I was like in a bad mood. And before I had to host this event, I was crying. Like I was like such in a negative spot. I was like crying. I was depressed. And I was actually at work and like I started crying in front of my coworkers. And it was like 5:30 and this event was like at 7 o'clock. So I had like an hour and a half to clean up my energy and host an event in which I was able to evoke emotion from people to give. And I'll tell you what, that was an interesting, very interesting situation for me because what it did was it sort of forced me to go inside and to find a way to remove that stress because I knew that I couldn't cancel. I couldn't cancel this thing, and I had to entertain a room of 300 people. So I had to really just like reach down and just like figure it out. And ironically, and I've talked about this over the years, if you've ever been in front of a lot of people, there is an energy that you receive from them. And so, especially a captive audience, there's just this sort of give and take, but there's an energy when people are paying attention to you that feels actually pretty good. So once I got into it, I think it was easy to sort of subside all those negative feelings and then to just really, jump in. And, if you've ever done anything like that, or really anything, you sort of have this, I don't know, like something takes over. Maybe it's because I've been doing it so long, it's just like muscle memory. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm sure there's a book out there about it. Really, and getting back to the whole Arnold Schwarzenegger biography, he talks about that too, about how, you put a lot of work in over time, that's what you're doing. You're working, 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 working into a place to where it's almost becomes like this, second nature that you're able to do something. I had people all the time ask me, they're like, oh my gosh, how are you so good in front of people? And I was like, 10,000 hours. I mean, I've been doing it for years. I get it if you've only done it twice in your life that you're not going to be very good at it. But it was interesting. I had another situation that I did actually, and this was too involving the ex and the relationship. But I like lost it on her one time during the holidays because really for me one of the things that was depressing about losing this relationship was I really wanted to build a family, and I loved her family, and I really loved her to death too, and I wanted to build a family. And so when that broke off, that was one of the hardest things for me because that's something that I have a desire to build. And being 41 years old, you're like, well, if I don't get going, I'm going to be 68 with kids coming out of the house. But I want like I've always wanted to be like a patriarch where I'm like grandpa, grandma with, grandkids and all that. I just really feel like I have a lot to give in that sort of scenario. But so that was one of the biggest issues. So whenever there was like a holiday event, I would respond out of that insecurity. And I did at this point. I remember I was like in a terrible mood, like awful mood. And at that time I thought, you know what? I wonder what it would be like. It was almost like an experiment for me to go out and to cold approach. So here it is. It's like 11:30. Now I didn't drink. I was bone sober, and I went to a bar, and I went up and I literally talked to like 10 different girls. Like walked up to them, didn't know who they were from Adam, and just cold approach, just asked questions, talk to them, try to get to know them. Now, I didn't have any sort of agenda. Like I wasn't interested in taking anybody home or really getting a phone number or anything like that. What I was interested is seeing if it would help, one, improve my state, the law of state transference, and two, if I could tell that the other person, if they could tell that I was in this state, if I was in this sort of negative place. And afterwards, I realized that they could tell. They could definitely tell. But I also found that a lot of times, like especially if I got more comfortable, I would start opening up about the, sort of shit that I felt that day. And like the worst thing you can do, guys, here I'm going to give you some dating advice here. The worst thing you can do when you first meet a girl is dump on her about how upset you are about your previous relationship ending. Yeah, I'm talking about how I'm an Uber driver, and like the weekend that I broke up with my fiance, like I Ubered that weekend because we were still living together. So I thought, well, I need to get out of the house. But I was an emotional wreck, like verge of crying. I mean, it was just like it was crazy, and I just wonder how these people thought I were in the car because usually I'm funny, I'm jovial, I'm able to like project this positivity and this just excitement. And at that point, I was like not in a good place. And I remember there's like one set of college kids. All right. So when we did break up, I was pretty overweight. I was like 190, and I gained a bunch of weight while we were together. One of the things that she had said to me when we broke up was, you got fat, and because she's real pretty girl, real in shape and stuff. And was looking, she said she wants to find somebody who would like motivate her to work out, So I was in this car, in the Uber with like a bunch of like 21-year-olds. I mean, these were kids, and they were all hot and young, and they had a pizza. And one of them was like, do you want a piece of pizza? And I was like, no, I just broke up with my girl, and she told me I was fat. And they're like, you're not fat. You're awesome. It was just so funny. I mean, I was kind of being silly too, but that was it. I told everyone about it though. That was in my Uber. I remember I even made jokes. I even wrote jokes about it because she said one of the things that she said was that I wasn't the one. So like one of my jokes was like, not the one. What is this? The Matrix? Red pill, blue pill? I mean, or how do you not know that the one, didn't just get on a plane to Bermuda, and you just missed them anyway. But the law of state transference, it's interesting because if you're able to do this, and I'll give you celebrities, for example. I met Taylor Swift one time, and you always hear how like celebrities will visit cancer patients and that sort of thing. Well, it's because of the law of state transference. If if there were like 8 people dying in that room and Taylor Swift walk in, just with her walking in would have like lifted the presence of the room. Like the room would have been like because that's what she's able to do with her presence right now. Now, I think some of that is because of the fact that you have a familiar experience with them. And I've had a little bit of this as an on-air personality that you'll meet somebody and if they listen to you religiously like all the time and they know you and they've heard your stories, and it could even happen with this, like if over time, you get connected with me just through these things, you have a frame of reference. But then if I meet you and I've never seen you before, a lot of times what happens is people treat you as if you know each other. And so I learned a long time ago that what you'll do is just sort of jump into the relationship with them. You don't, all the niceties and all the getting to know each other is gone because they already have a frame of reference with you. And actually, Taylor Swift, I'll tell you what she did. I've talked about this on previous videos too, but she actually, the first thing she did, because they set us up in groups in this meet and greet. And so it was me and Meredith, that's my ex. And we were like at the front of the door. And so she comes walking in with her entourage, and so you can feel like as she's walking in, you can feel like kind of that presence of her coming in because she's a big time celebrity, and you can feel people getting excited and their nerves and stuff like that. Very, very interesting energy. But the first thing she did was hug me, which I thought it was very important because she communicated then with her body and with her energy was, hey, I love you. So I'm going to give you, and you could tell that this girl loved me, and not loved me in a creepy way or a sexual way or anything like that, but just loved me because I was on this planet, because I support her music, because obviously if I wasn't there, why would I be there unless I have, some sort of respect or something for her. Now, ironically, I did go because I wanted Meredith to have that experience, and for me, I'm not like a total like, oh, I got to meet celebrities. Although I've met a lot of celebrities. I actually had an interview with Scotty McCreery on Friday, and I thought it was supposed to be Thursday, and it didn't happen, so I had it all prepped. So I totally forgot because I had something else going on, and then so I sort of got thrown into this interview. But one of the things that I always try to do whenever I do have a chance to interview like a celebrity like that is to sort of learn something, try to find out something that they did to get to where they're at. Just because I've always been fascinated with people that are sort of at that pinnacle. But getting back to it, that law of state transference, celebrities can do that very well because of that sort of frame of reference. But she was also in a very positive state. I mean, her state was amazing. And one of the other things that I noticed about her is that she held very confident eye contact. She was in charge. Even when we were having our little discussion with her, she was very comfortable and very at ease and very just oozed this sort of just calm, just joy. It was very fascinating. And I will say, I have been around other celebrities that do not do that, and people as well, But that's it, the law of state of transference, and you can feel somebody's energy. And what's really interesting about if you're ever in a relationship with a girl, and this is getting back to that one book I'm reading as well with the Way of Superior Man, is that a lot of the problems that occurred even in my past relationships had to do with the fact that I had this negative energy. And even though you have it in you, like it's hard to pretend and like fake it. Like you will, like you do, like you fake it. And I've done that on my show, like where I'm just having a terrible morning, but you get on the show and you're like smiling, you're like, oh, hey, yeah, hey, your chance to win. But like on the inside, like there's this just negativity in there that's like kind of hard to unwind. And I know that broadcasting over the air with that, is it's not as joyful as if I was in a positive state, So when you're in a relationship and you're around somebody all the time, I mean, and you have those emotions and those feelings and those negative spirals, as I like to call them, And then they come in and you're like, I remember I would tell myself, I'd be like, all right, she's coming home. Let's get out of this neediness or whatever it is that I was feeling, or this self-doubt or this depression or whatever it was. Let's try to fake it. So she'd come home and I'd be like, oh, da, da, da. But I know that she knew that there wasn't something quite right with me, that there was still some sort of anxiety in there. I actually recently, I was seeing somebody for like 2 weeks. I just recently broke up with someone else, actually, last week. So I've gone through a lot of breakups recently. And the difference between those two situations, now it was in the infancy stage of the relationship. And we didn't really break up as much as it just was sort of, I think with what I'm trying to focus on in my life, there just isn't a place for that right now. And I kind of let her know that. But she liked me, and it was one of those things where I think she, she was excited to be around me and that sort of thing. And what I did with her, especially in those beginning stages, is I had that passion. I had that sort of, calmness and confidence and whatever it is. But I had a good state every time I was around her. But what was different, and I've had this happen to me in the past, is it wasn't contingent on her. It was generally because I was just pulling it for myself, pulling that state for myself. If you look at a lot of the RSD guys, and I put this stuff on my YouTube channel because I have all my subscriptions. If this is something you struggle with, watch these RSD guys, because they really are sort of skilled at doing that, at being able to go into any situation. I mean, it could be a fight, and they could go into that situation and just project this sort of positive energy that sort of then disintegrates the fight. I still really struggle with that. That's one of my sticking points, I think, is learning how to take my stress and my my negative energy and take that and just change it and just get rid of it. I think it's one of those practices, that I'm going to constantly work on. Now, one of the things that I've been doing lately when I do it, and I did it today actually, is I start working. Sort of like this. This is one of the reasons why I did this, and even the one I did last night. It's sort of almost like a therapy for me, because what I do then is I sort of get out of my head and I get into the lessons, the things that I've learned. And because I know it's all in there, I know I'm reading this stuff. I know I've watched these videos. I've been doing this stuff for years. And it seems that once I start talking about it and once I start teaching it, that my state transfers. I feel better. I feel more at ease. I don't feel as stressed as I felt before. Whereas before, I might go drink, or I might watch TV, or something like that. Exercise actually, I think, is a good. A lot of times I'll do that too. If I'm real stressed out, I do that now. I'll go run, and I'll run hard, because what you can't do when you're doing a sprint? You can't think. All you're thinking about is, oh my gosh, I hope this is over soon. But I'll try to push through that as well, because that's a lot of mental. Arnold Schwarzenegger, getting back to his biography, and I don't think he said this in the biography, but I was watching one of his interviews online a couple of days ago. He was talking about how when he worked out, like he concentrated. He was in the moment. He was feeling his muscle fibers build. Like he said that he would do his biceps and just feel his arms and feel the energy. And he said, going back to him smiling, he would smile the entire time. And part of the reasons why he would smile is because he had a vision, he had a goal. He wanted to be the best. He wanted to be Mr. Olympian. And so even though he's working out 5 hours a day, he never saw it as misery. He just enjoyed, he just loved the grind. And for me, I'll tell you this, I have had a hard time trying to love the grind. And that's really where I'm trying to work. That's one of the things I'm trying to do right now too, is love that grind. And honestly, when you're in that grind and you're working hard, I mean, even getting back to when I hosted that event, there was really no room for me during that event to be any sort of emotional mess, right? Because I'm working, I'm grinding, I'm using my abilities that I've harnessed over years and years of doing it, and I'm projecting out what it is that I'm good at. I'm projecting out my purpose at that point, That whole idea, and even in relationships with the book I'm reading, the David Dieta book, Dieta, by the way. You should check this book out. If you're a man, even if you're a woman, because it talks about like women too and how y'all think. I think it's absolutely fantastic stuff. But especially if you want to learn how to be better at relationships, you got to pick that book up. But one of the things he talks about is that the only way to really have a successful relationship is that you have to be grounded in what your core purpose on this planet is. And once you discover that, once you know what that is, then out of that you can give your love. And, one of the things that I've noticed about myself is like I love it when somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, how do I get on the radio?" Or "What do you do?" Because I totally know this world. I've been in this world for 25 years. I got guys that were interns that are now, afternoon hosts. I got guys that were part-timers that were now in bigger markets. And it's because whenever I had a talent that really wanted to be in radio and would press into me, I would do whatever I could. I would because that for me, it was like, because one, I really do love the people that I'm around. Like, I want them to be successful. Our promotions director here, actually, she was an intern. And, we were talking one time and she told me what she wanted to do. And so, she kind of pressed into me a little bit. And I said, "You know what? This is what you need to do to get this job," because I've seen it. And sure enough, she did those things and she got the job. But it was fun for me to be able to help her like that and to be able to, help her become that better person. But that's that grind. That's, in loving that grind. But when you're giving out from the gifts of that purpose of why you're here on this planet, that's one of the most fantastic times in your life. That's when you're just like feeling on top of the world. And, a lot of times, even with my show, if I'm having a bad day, I can still get in there and just start working. Like I do my thing, what's trending online every day. Like, I got to write that every day. And that's comedy. That's like straight up writing comedy every single day. I got to have it done by 7:30 and recorded, which means I got to really have it done by 6:15. And I'm going through trying to find something, trying to be inspired to write these bits. And I got like 400 of these tracks that I've written. My blog, Brian's blog, is another thing. It's more of a, comedic look on what's going on in life. And those things take time. But I've written a couple of hundred of those things as well. But when I'm in that moment and I'm creating that, it's just, there's really not a whole lot else that I'm feeling at the time. I'm sort of just giving out of what it is that I feel like I have to give, But in his book, The Superior Man, he talks about that. He talks about that when you're giving out of that sort of core purpose of being on this life, you can then always give out that love, no matter what's going on around you. And that's where I want to get, especially in my relationship, I was sort of toying, I'm still reading this book, and it's a really good book, although I got a little bit depressed because I kind of wished I would have had this book a year ago when I was still in my relationship. Because I think it would have been fun to be able to try to explore these principles. And right now that I'm by myself and I'm single, I don't really want to explore these principles with unfamiliar women, because I'm not really interested in getting locked down in a relationship. And I think if I did, that would accelerate the relationship, and then next thing you know, you're girlfriend, boyfriend, and you're having to deal with those sorts of things. And it's just not what I kind of want to do right now. But oh well. I mean, I think I still can try to, discover these principles, and I think you can do it with people that you're not in a relationship with. I was actually talking to a couple of girls today on Tinder, and honestly, my whole motive to be on Tinder right now is just more because I want to try to understand it. Partly because of my $1 billion idea that I had on my last blog. That I did. On my last broadcast, which is to create a dating blog that gives you relationship advice. I think that's still a great idea. I still think I could probably figure out how to do that. But anyway, but it's interesting having exchanges with women who I don't know, who I've never really had, and I've never seen. I've never been able to exchange energy with them in person first. I'm doing it sort of digitally, and like even yesterday, yesterday, my last broadcast, I talked about that digital propinquity. It's sort of an interesting little experiment to see, how the response is and whether or not they can feel my actual intent when I'm doing the Tinder thing. I do, I know that Tinder is like a hookup site where, you do it to meet and to sleep with women like quickly. And I haven't really treated it as that yet, but I would be curious to see like how easy it is to actually hook up with somebody through that way. If you can actually get the energy and the I don't know, get it to a point to where before you even meet them, you want to, that you want to have that sexual experience with them. Now, I think for a guy it would be a lot easier, but for the girl, I'm not sure. But I mean, maybe so. Maybe they could look at my picture and be like, "Yes, that guy. I want him to sleep with me." I don't know. It's a new world for me, to be honest. And I have, people make fun of me because I say this all the time. Like, if you have something that you want to learn how to do, like go on YouTube. And when I first got on Tinder, I got on YouTube and I was like, what sort of profile, psychology should you do? What sort of like the texting for me, I have texted a lot of people over the time, so I sort of understand like sort of the psychology of texting. Like one of the big things and it's funny if you read the profiles, women will actually tell you what they kind of want you to talk about. But like one of the words, I had one the other day that said, hay is for horses. And basically what she was saying is, if you hit me up on Tinder, don't open up with, hey, right? Makes sense. So that's what she's saying. Generally what I do is I'll try to find something in their profile and then make it relatable, to somehow. What did I do today? Oh, my phone. Like, where's my phone? Actually, I just got a Tinder message. It's kind of funny. Just said that. But I forgot what I said today. I do know. I forgot what I said. I don't remember. I've been doing a bunch of different ones. Sometimes I'll like throw a song lyric out there. But I generally try to find something in there. Oh, the one girl I talked to today, I said, because she had a picture of her like singing on a mic. It looked like she was a band. And I said something about, we need to start a band. I play guitar and sing. And then I said something about, and she's like, definitely. And then I was like, but just so you know, I'm a diva. I can't eat brown M&Ms, and my water has to be at 56 degrees. So a little bit of my personality. Now, sometimes I've noticed, because I did do one time, I had this joke. I thought it was funny as hell. But I said something about, I just got out of prison, and my parole officer told me to get on Tinder to meet somebody. And the girl was like, that's the worst pickup line I've ever heard. And I was like, what? I forgot what I said, but I was just trying to be stupid and funny. But that didn't work. So don't be stupid and funny. Tinder is fun for doing experiments. I don't know why, but don't be stupid and funny. Be like serious, but find something in their profile and just relate with them. That's the thing I learned. But I also I genuinely like talking to people. Like, even if I go to a bar, I was out on Friday night and I started talking to this little girl, and I know I call them little girls because she was a little girl, and I wasn't attracted to her. I mean, she was cute. She was a hot little girl or whatever, but like she smoked, and I can't be around smokers. But a lot of times I'll talk to whoever. I don't really care. So I was talking to her, and she asked me, she's like, what do you think of the Confederate flag? So I told her what I thought, and I just blasted what I thought. And she did not agree with me. It was so funny because she ends up leaving, just walking away because she didn't agree with what I had to say about the Confederate flag. But then later on, she gave me a cute little wink and waved goodbye, but whatever, it was funny. I did think that was a pretty funny exchange on Friday night. But anyway, all over the place. The law of state transference. That's kind of where this started. But really, in the title of this broadcast today is learning to use what you learn. And if Arnold Schwarzenegger, as I'm going through his biography, I've learned something from him. It's that he was learning the entire time. Like, even when he became an actor, he constantly was learning. He constantly was going to acting classes. He was working on his accent, He would listen to what people said. But he also, the one thing about him is he did stick to his core principle, which made him very successful. But everyone told him to change his name. They're like, nobody's going to want it. And he didn't, because he knew that that's who he was. That was him. He's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And even though I can't spell Schwarzenegger, I can say it, and everybody on the planet knows who he is. So, that was a good lesson to learn as well. And even getting back to the whole superior man thing, that's exactly what they say there. And if you want to be in a relationship and have it be a successful relationship, that superior man always sticks to what they believe is their core decision. I was reading an article the other day about really rich people too, and they said that one of the biggest characteristics of somebody who's been a billionaire or a millionaire is all that is their decisiveness. And it's the ability to be able to make a decision and know that it's the right decision and you're not second guessing it, But even like I would have this happen in a relationship where I would make a decision, which actually I came to a decision today. But about 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, my mom came to me and she was like, Brian, I want to help you build a business, and I have it that, since I'm in radio, why not be a mobile DJ? And I've done it before. I was actually a marketing director for a mobile DJ company back in the 90s. So I have a really good frame of reference. I know how to do weddings. I've been to a lot of weddings. I've done weddings. I've done over 100 weddings. And it's like, all right, well, that'd be a good opportunity for me to jump in. And I kind of swayed for a little bit because I was like, well, there were aspects of it that I didn't like and all that. But when I was in that relationship, there was a situation that came up where I was like, all right, I'm going to start networking. And as soon as I did that, I got a little bit of pushback from my fiance. And I remember thinking, well, if I'm going to get pushback, then I'm not going to do it. And I stopped. Well, this book, and this is like one of those lessons, it says that that's going to happen. If you're in a relationship with somebody and you start to build a business or do anything like that, that your girl will test you to see if you're man enough to not be swayed. And even if you read a lot of these principles from business people, they talk about that all the time. They talk about like how your friends and your family, like everybody will test you. Everybody will be like, you can't do it. And they might not come out and say that, but they might give you some sort of pushback. And when I failed that pushback from her, what I should have done is been like, no, this is what I'm doing. You're going to have to deal with it. She then would have been way more attracted to me. Now I could do it. I would have done it out of love because this is what my purpose was to build this business. And I really feel like I should build this business. But she would have then eventually been like, okay, yeah, kind of thing, instead of letting her dictate that sort of pushback. But that happens all the time. And if she ever watches this, I don't want her to think I'm picking on her. I'm not. I think that that happens in relationships. And this book tells you that. It tells you that when you are a man, that the female, it goes masculine and masculine and feminine, that the feminine will challenge you along the way to see if you will still stick to your core principles as a man. And in that case, I failed that thing. There was even another example I can think of where I was thinking about going into real estate. And I met somebody that was in real estate and they had a really good transition program, and I told her about it, and she got real upset at me because of the person. She said that there's a girl there that I had a relationship with, and so, instead of just manning through that and being like, I'm going to go to this meeting, I'm going to try to, do this is something that I feel like within me I need to do, I've then backed off again. I was like, okay. So those are the sort of the lessons that I've learned in that thing, is that you are kind of going to be challenged. And even getting back to Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography, it's like, yeah, he was challenged. I mean, they were like, you got to change your name. He's like, no, not going to do it. Well, your accent, you'll never be famous with your accent. He's like, I'll work on it, but this is who I am. This is who I am. And that's really brilliant. Even like Taylor Swift, getting back to, meeting her, if she's done anything right, she has done what she wanted to do as she was going up. And I'm sure she was told over the time, well, no, you got to be more sexy, or you gotta, make a sex tape. I'm sure that never happened. But you get my point, is that people will always give you advice. But if you are, if you at your core know what you want to accomplish, you're obviously going to still seek out mentors. You obviously are going to still seek out help and that sort of thing. But if it's advice that you know is contrary to what your belief system is or what's going on the inside, then you'll definitely go ahead and bust through that, and then just to make that decisive decision for yourself. If you've Steve Jobs, classic. If you've ever read anything about him, he talks about how like people would try to tell him what to do, and he would just like destroy them. He would yell at them, scream at them. And some guys do that, but then you see the level of success that they have. The interesting thing about Arnold Schwarzenegger, he actually tells a story about how when he was doing Conan, it's his biography, by the way. If you want to change your life, get his biography. But he talked about Conan when he was doing Conan. He had this falling out with one of the producers, and really when he had a falling out, he had a meeting with him, and kind of he made a crass joke about this guy, and this guy, because he's got a huge ego, he couldn't handle it, so he, and a lot of people that get a lot of, you meet people in positions of power that sort of lord their power over you, and it seems like this guy was one of them, and he was actually the producer or some sort of big wig on the Conan project. And so at first he tried to get it kicked off, and he couldn't, because they're like, no, he's the guy doing it, because he was even saying at one point the guy came up to him during production then, and this was years after they had this initial falling out or this initial meeting that went awry, and the guy was like, "You are Conan, Arnold." So he like sort of, that was his compliment to him. But one of the things that happened was, I guess there was an issue with his salary during this. And when they came to him, they were like, listen, we're not going to pay you this way like we said we were going to. And he was like, okay. And they were expecting to get pushback from him, but he didn't give them pushback. And he said the reason was he understood that he needed to do these movies in order to get to the next step in the next place where he was. And he also understood that at this point, he really didn't have a whole lot of leverage. So why push it? Why try to fight? Why not agree with it? Move on, and then he can make his next goal. And he even said, because I knew that if I did that at some point, I would have that leverage. And he did. He got that leverage. He was the highest paid movie star in the world at one point, and maybe even now he might be close to that again. So I thought that was interesting how he didn't choose to fight for it at that point, because he recognized that he could get it another way. There's actually a great movie, by the way. It kind of reminds me, called About Time, where this guy can go back in time and change things. And he ends up going back in time, changing something, and it ends up ruining his life. So then he goes back, changes it back, and then finds another way for it to work out. And I think that's like kind of the key, is like you will get feedback from people, and sometimes it's okay to go ahead and be challenged that feedback. But then other times it's like, well, there might be another way, and this project right here is more important than me fighting and doing that sort of thing. And if I was going to relate this back to my relationship, what I should have done when I got that pushback is just gone ahead with what it is that I should do, because I feel like in my core that's the right thing to do, that's the decision as the leader to make, and then found a way to manage her. And the way that you do it, according to this book, and what I should have done is I should have just loved her through it. I should have just said, listen, I'm aware that you're upset about these particular people, but I love you. You're my girl, and then just sort of surrounded her with my love, and then gone ahead with what it is that I wanted to do, instead of just shutting it down and then being angry and resentful and that sort of thing. So I don't know, maybe if I did read this book a year ago, we'd still be together. But, it's very fascinating. Learning what you're learning and putting it into practice. And I want to say this too. One of the reasons why I'm doing these broadcasts is because I don't really have anybody to talk to about this stuff. So I thought, you know what? Why not put it on YouTube? Maybe there's people out there like-minded like me that are in the same situation. I'm 41 years old. I spent the last 10 years of my life in this just sort of haze this sort of, the drunken state, this television just induced coma. And I've recognized that now that I'm 41, I haven't been able to accomplish everything that I want to accomplish in my life. And so I found that when I would talk to people like who I know that were part of my life group even now, which I don't have a whole lot of people in my life group, I've actually sort of dwindled a lot of those people out. They would look at me like I was crazy. They would be like, "Oh, that's kind of what are you studying? What are you listening to on YouTube? What is RSD? Who are people get real judgmental about new information." And, I read Sam Walton's biography. And one of the things that I noticed when I would tell people that I'm reading Sam Walton's biographies, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, I hate Walmart. I hate Walmart." And I'd take a step back and I'd be like, "Well, why do you hate Walmart?" "Well, they're destroying the small business, man." And it's like, all right, okay. Well, there's some groupthink there. I get it. That people don't like Walmart because Walmart came in and was better than the small business. And so therefore the small business went out of business because they weren't as good as Walmart was. So whatever. Because I guess they felt like, I guess it was unfair, or maybe Walmart was cheating. People say, "Well, they were cheating." Well, I guess. All right. The bottom line is that, if you read this book, you see that his whole goal was to build stores in rural communities to give people products at the absolute dirt cheapest way he could get people products. And he didn't make a whole lot of money for the first 30 years on these products that he would make because he wanted to pass the savings on to his customers. That was his goal. And he wrote that book on his deathbed and even said the money wasn't even the point. I just wanted to be into retailing. But that whole idea of, well, I can't learn anything from Sam Walton. Nope, can't learn. Nothing I can learn from him. Even though he built literally one of the biggest companies, was the richest man in America at one point. People like, well, it's because of what they do to small business. Nothing I can learn. Even Donald Trump. Here Donald Trump is running for president. I read one of his books a couple months ago. Donald Trump was $7 billion in debt and got out of it. All right. And I was talking to one of my buddies about this, and he's like, "Well, but, he grew up with money, Yeah, but he still was $7 billion in debt and got out of it. Sure, he made these comments about illegal immigrants, which, by the way, is not new comments. It's weird that it became this anti-Mexico thing, but whatever. He just made these comments about illegal immigrants, but people will refuse to learn from Donald Trump because of that, or they don't like The Celebrity Apprentice. But it's the same thing. It's like, why are you refusing to learn from somebody who obviously did something fantastic? The guy with $7 billion in debt got out of it. I mean, so put aside the fact that he, said something weird about illegal aliens. Maybe he might have a point here. Maybe, why are you totally discrediting this person based on one comment that he made in the media? When he's had this incredible life and he's been able to overcome all these different things. And same with Sam Walton. I mean, if you read this guy's book, if you're anti-Walmart, well, then just read the book and pretend it's Target. I mean, the principles that this guy did, he was fantastical. And he wasn't Hitler. He wasn't trying to destroy people. He was trying to build a community, and he built a business. But it's funny how we just focus on that one or two things that we don't like about someone, and then we just I can't learn anything from them. You can learn from anybody. You can even learn from your enemies, by the way. I guarantee you, if there's someone you don't like, there's something you can learn from them if you just ask questions and engage them. So anyway, that's all I got to do for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Getting a little better at these. I'm going to keep doing it. Putting it on YouTube too. I am going to put it on my website. I did it yesterday too. thebriansimshow.com. That's my website under Brian's World. And then if you want to go ahead and look at my YouTube channel, a lot of the things that I subscribe to are on there. My advice, depending on what you want to do, if you're looking for relationship stuff, get that book. Get that David Dieta book. If you're looking at business stuff, read Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography. That is a great book. I really enjoyed that. And then if you're looking at like health and fitness and stuff like that, I got a bunch of stuff on there. I haven't really been talking about health and fitness because I feel like that's something that I have kind of down in my life. So I mean, I do it every day. I played racquetball yesterday for like 3 hours, and actually my back is a little sore today. But for the most part, not doing a whole lot of that right now. Even though I'm doing it, like I said, I'm working out every day. But you know, I think health and fitness is really the easiest thing of all of this because it's just you can just pick a plan. You know, do the paleo diet, get on a good workout plan. You know, mine is basically I eat egg whites, and turkey bacon. I eat almonds. I eat chicken. I eat broccoli. I eat asparagus, and every once in a while I'll have a steak. And then maybe once a week I'll have a piece of pizza or something or a beer. That's pretty much my diet. Water, you know, I don't drink any sodas or anything like that. Pretty boring, pretty vanilla. I was actually told that my diet is pretty boring. I would like to explore more because I made some fish the other day and I put this neat little sauce on it that I got from my roommate. But that was kind of fun, you know. So I'm trying to explore like different sauces and stuff. But for the most part, like my diet is like the most boring thing. But I also, you know, I think I lost 17 pounds once I got out of that relationship. In 2 months, I lost about 17 pounds. But honestly, a lot of that has to do with working out too. My workout's real simple. I do push-ups, I do pull-ups, I do a lot of body weight squats, I do sprint training, and I swim. That's what I do. So 5 things. So I just kind of a full body workout. I do arms too. I do like bicep curls and stuff. So pretty much full body workout, which is the legs, push-ups, you know. I do shoulders and all that sort of stuff, but nothing real crazy. Just I take 30-pound weights and shoulders, biceps, you know. I've thought about getting into doing more bodybuilding stuff, but right now I just don't have it. I don't, right now I don't want to do it. But at some point, maybe in a year, maybe in a couple months, I might throw myself in that. That's like 2 hours a day, and that's 2 hours a day right now. I'd rather be doing some other stuff, and I kind of like the way I look, you know. I like my size and stuff like that. And really with the food stuff too, for me, like I don't want to really think about food. I just want to sort of have it down. So I buy my groceries. I don't do food prep. I know a lot of people do that, but I just eat the same thing. I eat the same thing all the time. It's boring. Maybe not for you, but find a workout plan, find a health plan, get on it. That's one of the easiest things you can do, by the way. I tell you, it's way easier than the relationship stuff. It's way easier than the business stuff. It's way easier than the trying to, you know, deal with your emotions and depression and stuff like that. Although, like I said earlier, sprinting is a good way if you're depressed to kind of deal with that. All right, that's it. Have a good day.